We're in the final stretch before the midterms. Early voting has already begun, and there's a lot of good news for Republicans and a lot of bad news for Democrats. We are now learning that in the polls, Republicans are gaining a massive edge. And in aggregate polling, it's really surprising. The past several polls across the board show Republicans with a major advantage. Why? It's the economy, stupid. Major news broke last week when Joe Biden tried getting the Saudis to withhold their plans for oil production for 1 month, just 1 month. Here's how it breaks down. The Saudis have halted production. If they waited, gas prices would have stayed a little bit lower up until the midterms were over. Now, of course, many Democrats are saying they were trying to help Americans out, but that doesn't seem to make sense. Why wait but a single month? The reality is Joe Biden's desperate. They know the economic news is bad, and they know that when it comes down to it, it's the economy, stupid. So what are we seeing across the board? Major success. Now, in some states like Pennsylvania, you got bad news for Democrats because their candidates just can't cut it. John Fetterman, with all due respect, I do find the guy very personable, but he's got brain damage. And I don't mean that to be mean or disrespectful. The man suffered a stroke and now requires a translation device to transcribe words to text because he cannot process the audio. I'm sorry, but right before an election, this is apocalyptic. To add insult to injury, Joe Biden is coming out to campaign for Fetterman, and this is resulting in memes and mockery. The Democrats are leaning heavily into January 6th and abortion. But these are issues that predominantly run among upper class, suburbanite liberals. When it comes to the core issues, Democrats just don't have it. So we're seeing all of the aggregates, major news that it's looking really, really good for Republicans. Now, does this mean Republicans are going to win? No. And you better believe it. You better get out and vote. Register your friends, get your friends to register, talk to your friends, because right now what we're looking at is a Democratic Party that I have no problem saying has lost the plot. And that's why Tulsi Gabbard, of all people, Trump supporters aren't big fans of Tulsi for the most part, but she does have many Trump supporters who are fans. She came out and left the Democratic Party. Why? Because they're obsessed with wokeness and their policies make no sense, and the warmongers have stepped in. Now, of course, I believe this is a bit, some would say, opportunistic. She just launched her new show, Tulsi Gabbard Podcast, but I think there's an important point to be made. This is an October surprise. Now, a lot of diehard Democrats are laughing, saying good riddance to Tulsi, and they're acting like, so what? We all knew that she wasn't a Democrat anyway. And I agree with that to a certain extent, right? I criticized a little bit when I said she could have come out in 2020 and had a bigger impact. Maybe we would not be in this war mess. Maybe we wouldn't be sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. In case you're wondering why your prices are going up, that's a contributing factor. But I think there's an important point to be made. A whole plethora of October surprises are coming our way, which are going to have a big impact on the election. We got news. The DOJ wants 6 months for Steve Bannon for contempt of Congress. October surprise, I guess, but I'll tell you this. I don't think that's good for Democrats. I think it's bad for Democrats. It shows the DOJ has been weaponized. You have Nancy Pelosi on video saying, this is the moment I've been waiting for trespassing on the Capitol grounds. What do you mean you were waiting for this? You knew it was a possibility. You were waiting for it to happen. Why didn't you do anything to secure the grounds or warn anybody? These things are bad. And then with Tulsi Gabbard, there are a lot of regular people, middle of the road people who don't want to vote Republican, who are now going to see her and take lead. It may not be the biggest movement, but it is still good. Across the board, we are seeing the polling improve dramatically for Republicans. So get ready, my friends. We may see a red wave, but I got to tell you, I still think Democrats can take this one. Despite it defying historical trends, best be warned. Before we get started, head over to Scott Pressler's Twitter account. Normally, I'd shout out timcast.com, and I will. But I want to give a shout out to Scott Pressler, who says he's dealing with a blood disease. His hemoglobin's very low. He's been in the hospital. And I'm hoping this, Scott, I'm hoping you pull through and everything will be okay. It sounds relatively serious. But this is a man who has worked harder than anybody else to register new voters and help clean up the streets of many of these cities that have been ignored for a long time. I think, Scott, I think you're a really, really good dude, and I wish for you the best. And I hope more people know about this and send you well wishes. And through through willpower that you pull through this one and get better, because we definitely need more people like you, man. So again, Scott Pressler posted a video. He's been in the hospital for some days. I hope you get through this, man. I hope everything's going to be okay. That being said, head over to timcast.com, become a member, support our work and the awesome work of our journalists, because I got to give a shout out to Elad Eliyahu on the ground asking people about John Fetterman. And this is enlightening. As we talk about the polls, you need to take a look at this video we have posted today by Elad at timcast.com on the ground at a rally asking people about Fetterman and his record. Some dude gets up in his face and tells him to F off and get out of here. Why? Because Fetterman ain't actually all that good. In a viral story, he apparently chased an innocent black man down the street wielding a gun. He was Fetterman. Fetterman had a gun and he chased an innocent guy just jogging. Elad asks people about it. They don't take kindly to these questions. And that's the kind of ground reporting we need. So if you want to support the work of our journalists, go to timcast.com and become a member. Let's jump to the polls and make some predictions. Who knows where we'll go? The New York Times says Republicans gain edge as voters worry about economy, Times Siena poll finds. Republicans enter the final weeks of the contest for control of Congress with an narrow but distinctive advantage as the economy and inflation have surged as the dominant concerns, giving the party momentum to take back power from Democrats in next month's midterm elections. A New York Times Siena College poll has found. Now, that's good news for Republicans. There's a lot of factors at play, but I don't care for just one single poll. I think the aggregate says more. But here's the biggest part. Let me read. The poll shows that 49% of likely voters said they planned to vote for a Republican to represent them in Congress on November 8th, compared with 45% who planned to vote for a Democrat. The result represents an improvement for Republicans since September, when Democrats held a 1-point edge among likely voters in the last Times Siena poll. They say, with inflation unrelenting and the stock market steadily on the decline, the share of likely voters who said economic concerns were the most important issues facing America has leaped since July to 44% from 36%, a far higher than any other issue. And voters most concerned with the economy favored Republicans overwhelmingly by more than a 2-1 margin. Now, here is the final hammer. This is likely voters, not swing voters. Let me make that clear for all of you. In their poll, they say, based on a New York Times Siena College poll of 792 likely voters nationwide. What does that mean? It means it's going to oversample urban liberals. That's right. A national poll will have a whole bunch of, not just liberals, but also we don't need to poll deep red and deep blue districts. What we need to poll are swing districts. In purple districts, how are things heading? Where are things heading? Take a look at this. This one I find fascinating. In this poll, they say, which party's candidate are you more likely to vote for? And it's 49 Republican to 45 Democrat nationally. So what do you think that means? With polls skewing already, it spells bad news for Democrats. Now take a look at this. Women are even, 47 to 47. Men are 50 to 45. What's fascinating is that 18 to 29-year-olds favor Democrats, 30 to 44-year-olds, Democrats, 45 to 64, it's nearly 2-1 Republican, and 65 and older is even. That's surprising because this means that the 45 to 64-year-old generation is larger and has a bigger and more pronounced impact on the total number than all other demographics. Because look, 18 to 29 is very heavily Democrat, 30 to 44 heavily Democrat, and 65 and older is even. But 45 to 64? All right, I guess the Gen Xers and the younger boomers are saving things. You got older boomers over 65. That's true. Among white voters, it's 55 to 40. Hispanic is 34 to 60. And black is 18 to 78. That is apocalyptic. Black voters breaking this far for Republicans is huge and good news for Republicans. But as I stated, it is but one poll, my friends. I bring you now to Real Clear Politics, generic congressional vote. This is where things get a little bit bigger. Here we can see in most of the recent polls, Republicans are heavily favored, giving Republicans an aggregate of 1.8% above Democrats. So here we go. New York Times Siena +4, Fox News +3, Trafalgar +5, CBS +2, Harvard +6, Rasmussen +7, Economist YouGov +2, Politico Morning Consult +4, Federalist Susquehanna as a tie, an insider advantage plus 3. The reason I was reading all of those out for you is because now I want to show you 538. And the big difference, 538 says, do voters want Republicans or Democrats? An updating estimate of the generic congressional ballot. 0.8% lead for Democrats. Now, how does that make sense? How does Real Clear Politics show a bigger lead, 1.8? But this from 538 shows Democrats with a 0.8 lead. I'll tell you the difference. When you take a look at the aggregates used by 538, you can see that they actually have older polls included and they have multiples of the same organization. That I found particularly interesting. We can see that YouGov is listed 3 times. Now, it may be the case real quick. I just want to make sure. Okay, so you can see Economist and YouGov is listed here. But what else do they have that's YouGov? They have CBS News, which claims to be YouGov. And then you can see CBS here. So it looks like Real Clear Politics also does have some repeats. But I think the important factor is it appears that, no, actually, I can't tell you. It looks like they just use, I'm sorry, they use multiples. They have 2 polls here skewing this. They have YouGov The Economist and YouGov The Economist listed twice. They have Siena New York Times Upshot listed twice with 2 different numbers. So I'll just say, maybe I don't get how they do their polls. But we can see here at the top, October 12th to 14th, Republican, 12th to 13th, even, 9 to 13th, Republican. You go down and you have 10th to the 11th. The 11th seems to be the cap. So it seems older polls tend to favor Democrats. Newer ones are favoring Republicans. At the very least, that seems to be where we are. Here's where it gets big. And there's more big. I should say more big because I said it was already getting big. No, we got more information here. Take a look at this. From 270 to win, we can see the current Senate Battleground tracker. And it looks like we've got 2 toss-up races. And in Pennsylvania, 1 tilt Democrat. I actually think this means we might see 52 Senate seats for the Republican Party. And the reason is, and maybe even more. I mean, you look at Arizona and you look at New Hampshire and it says leans Democrat. This could be skewed. We know there's like a 7-point swing favoring Democrats in many of these polls. And if that's the case, it may be that in Arizona, you actually end up with Republicans, same for New Hampshire. And then when that happens, it's looking like Republicans will take the Senate. 52 seats perhaps, but let's do this. We'll pull up the House interactive map here, and I'll show you the exact same thing. Right now, it's looking like Republicans are favored to have 216 to Democrats 206, but there's 13 toss-ups. 7 are tilting Democrat. We already saw in South Texas and in Florida, historic blue districts flip Republican. If that happens again, as the polling may predict, or I should say the pundits might predict, we're looking at what? Republicans taking 230? Who knows how many? I don't know. It's hard to predict this stuff because things are just so weird. But we've got 13 toss-ups. That's interesting. To me, toss-up means lean Republican. Here we are, baby. CNN.com. Political mood tilts in Republicans' favor with economy and inflation top of mind. Oh, I love that. Top of mind. 3 weeks from midterms. Well, that's it. It's the economy, stupid. Economy and inflation are the dominant issues 3 weeks out from the midterm congressional elections, challenging Democrats' chances of maintaining control of Congress, according to a string of new polls released in the last few days. I would like to add, my friends, I have some insider knowledge, some sources talking about what's going on behind the scenes. And I can't say too much, but it sounds like some top Democrats are expecting not to be in office. That's the most I can say to respect my sources. CNN goes on to mention CBS and YouGov data, all showing basically the same thing. They say that Democrats had been trying to use Roe v. Wade. They say for the nation's overall political mood, Democrats had been somewhat more favorable. The news had been favorable for Democrats following the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade. But as we know now, it ain't it. Interactive poll says Harvard-Harris poll, most important issues. Inflation, 37. Economy, 29. Immigration, 23. Crime and drugs, 18. Abortion, 17. January 6th is the most important issue to 7% of registered voters. The generic ballot among likely voters, according to Harvard-Harris, is +6. And there it is, my friends. Abortion, 17%. Well, they say women's rights here in this list, so I don't know. I'm assuming that means abortion. Actually, I wonder if women's rights means something else. I don't know. But there it is, my friends. Price increases and inflation is the dominant issue. I'm seeing friends post this stuff, man, being like, why is milk so expensive? Why can't I buy bread and eggs? Get some chickens, yo. They make eggs for you. They eat the bugs, poop out the eggs, right out the butt. But it's getting expensive, man, and people can feel it. And when they can feel it, they vote against it. So here it is from Axios. Democrats' blue state headaches. House Republicans are increasingly confident they can make unexpected inroads into some solidly Democratic congressional districts, including in some of the bluest states in the country, California, Connecticut, New York, Oregon, and Rhode Island. Following the money. This is important as following the limited congressional polling. Republicans are now pouring over $25 million into some of the bluest political battlegrounds on the map. A fresh sign that the political winds favor the GOP down the home stretch. The Congressional Leadership Fund, aligned with House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, has spent or reserved over $23 million on ads in 8 Democratic-held districts that President Biden carried by double-digit margins. Arizona, California 13, 47, 49, Connecticut 5. This is crazy. The NRCC is also spending $2.2 million on coordinated or hybrid ad buys with their nominees in 5 more Democratic-held districts that Biden carried by double digits. Republicans are bullish. They can win the Oregon governor's race for the first time since 1982. What? Boosted by an intra-Democratic feud, Democrats are playing furious defense in 3 Biden-friendly House battlegrounds in Oregon as well. Perhaps when a roving band of psychopaths sets fire to multiple buildings, people say, please stop. And then you, the Democrats, go, no. They say, fine, I'll vote in someone else. Bravo to all of those in Oregon who stuck it out and didn't leave to stay and vote. Surprise me. Prove me wrong, man. I've been telling people to get out of cities, but if you stick around in here and you win these districts, maybe we can see some real change. So let's talk about the specifics here. U.S. inflation rate is actually 16.4%, economist says. Shadow Stats founder says federal officials manipulated the calculation in the 80s to make inflation appear more favorable to politicians. You may have seen this one quite a bit. Goes around from time to time. I think it's fair to say there are just different metrics. If you follow the metrics based on 1980, inflation is higher than it's been since what, World War II? Now, of course, the official inflation numbers are not this. I want to point that out. The official inflation number shows us like 8.2. If you go based on 1980, and it's changed time and time again, and okay, maybe there's an argument for that, it is much higher. Here's the reality. This is what people feel. I call this like economic wind chill. They say the temperature is actually -10, but with wind chill, it's -30. For those of you in Chicago, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It can be 10 degrees outside, but the wind hits you hard and it chills you. And so it feels a lot colder. This is what people are feeling. They're feeling the economy hitting them in the face. And you know what? It ain't helping that Democrats are just bad candidates. Here we go. White House punts on question about Fetterman's health before Biden visit. The White House declined to answer questions about Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman's health Friday, saying only that President Joe Biden was looking forward to appearing next week with the Democratic nominee for the Senate in Pennsylvania. Now, this story, of course, is from October 14th, so we should be seeing that soon. Fetterman faced new questions about his medical condition after a media interview showed him using a computer to answer reporters' questions. The reporter later said that she was unsure Fetterman could understand her when they talked beforehand. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre told reporters that Fetterman, who is recovering from a stroke, is someone that Biden truly respects and they have a relationship. Fine with that. Can he do the job? Biden is scheduled to appear with Fetterman on Thursday. The two campaigned together on Labor Day last month. But the president's campaign schedule has included few stops in swing states. With the most competitive Senate races, Republicans only need a net gain of 1 seat to retake the current 50-50 chamber, which is under Democratic control due solely to Vice President Kamala Harris's tie-breaking vote. Jean-Pierre took questions about Fetterman while the president was flying from California to Oregon. Both are reliably blue states, though they each featured some at-risk Democratic candidates this year. This is very interesting. Biden going to California and Oregon is shocking. He shouldn't need to. They're deep blue, right? That's how bad it is. Democrats are defending their own territory because they've done so miserably. Red wave, baby. We'll see. Biden often mentions his Pennsylvania connections as a Scranton native, no matter where he is speaking. Some have decried the reporting on Fetterman's medical condition as discriminatory against the disabled, comparing it to disqualifying from the Senate people who rely on wheelchairs or even eyeglasses. But the Fetterman camp has been criticized for a lack of transparency about his health since he suffered a stroke. Let me just pause you right there, my friends, and say, there's a difference, okay? If you need to hire someone to lift boulders, but someone has no arms, what do you do, man? How do you deal with this? Look, all due respect, people should be allowed to get jobs and there should be opportunities, but some jobs require a function. When it comes to Hollywood casting, you're allowed to ask for a certain race because the casting requires a person for that role. Fetterman, he wants to be in the Senate, but he can't understand words spoken, only words read. I think that means he can't do the job. If he's going to be in an active debate with someone on the floor and he can't understand what they're saying, I think we've got a serious problem. Now, to be fair, they've got computers that can assist, but these computers are not perfect. If you could say something like, I was talking to my sister Joanne, and she said this, the computer might actually translate it to, I was talking to Mr. Joanne. Let's say you've got someone named Pat, or what's a Mallory? Can be a last name. It can be a first name for men or women. Here's an example. And you can say, I was talking to my sister Mallory, and she said X. And then the machine says, I was talking to Mr. Mallory. You see, I know it's kind of like a weird example, but my point is there are limitations here. Look, glasses allow you to see. Hearing aids allow you to hear. And if your brain can understand it, you can answer the question with those tools. But it may be too early for this kind of transcription, apps to get it right. More importantly, I think it's not, I don't know how to say it, man. I'll just put it this way. People are going to look at that and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I find it disqualifying. Whether we can adapt to these things or not, in the future, I suppose, as long as technology can provide information, then you can act upon that information. My question is, if Fetterman is unwilling to release his medical records, is the issue at hand worse than just being unable to understand words spoken to him? If he can't understand them when they're spoken, why should we assume he can understand them when he's reading them? And that is the big issue that I don't have answers for. I really don't. Now, aside from that, we've got this video clip. Senate hopeful John Fetterman hosts rally in Pennsylvania. Alad Eliyahu goes on the ground to a Fetterman rally. And this guy actually gets in his face. We can see right here, this dude's yelling at him because Fetterman chased an innocent black jogger down the street with a shotgun. Let me tell you the story. The story is that Fetterman heard gunshots, grabbed, I believe it was a shotgun. If that's what I think that's, well, it's in the video. And then went outside, saw an innocent black man jogging and chased after him. Now, I think Fetterman's well within his rights to have a weapon and defend himself. But it was really funny. Someone claimed to me, don't you defend the Second Amendment, Tim? You criticizing John Fetterman is hypocritical. Bro, just because you have a right to keep and bear arms doesn't mean I think you have a right to chase innocent people with them. But he thought it was crime being committed. It was a felony. I get all that. And fine. Pinning the guy down, searching him and all that stuff. If you engage in citizen's arrest and you're wrong, you can be sued and you can make mistakes and you should be held accountable for those mistakes. Hearing gunshots does not mean you are at risk. So there's questions here outside of, look, if you're standing there and you see someone pull a gun and start shooting, then I think you have an obligation or responsibility to try and protect people, depending on what the person's shooting at. You have a right to use weapons. And you got to be careful because what if the person shooting is actually shooting defensively, like trying to stop a bad person who's killing someone or something like that? You got to be careful, man. But the question here is about hypocrisy among the left. If they want to claim that, black people are often innocent and targeted in this way, Zimmerman comes to mind. Why would they defend this? Right. George Zimmerman, they edited the audio to make it seem like he was saying he thought Trayvon Martin was suspicious because he was black, but they edited the audio. The dispatcher asked him, what is the race of the individual? NBC edited the audio to make him say he looks suspicious. I think he's black. When in reality, he said he looks suspicious. Dispatcher said, what's he wearing? He's wearing a hoodie. What's his complexion? I think he's black. They edited it. A manipulation. So in that case, the left was outraged. What about Fetterman? He did the same thing, chasing an innocent dude. We're lucky the dude is not hurt. Hypocrisy. This stuff people can see, man. And they can see stuff like this. DOJ recommends 6-month jail term for Bannon. A jury found Bannon guilty in July on 2 misdemeanor counts of contempt of Congress. Contempt of Congress, a misdemeanor. They don't go to jail for 6 months? That's crazy. Now regular people are starting to see the DOJ has been weaponized by the Biden administration. They are psychotic. It's nuts. Fine, Bannon, contempt of Congress. I get it. 30 days. How about this? It's a contempt of Congress. It's house arrest. They want him to go to jail. Politico says 6 months in jail and $200,000. Prosecutors said Bannon, from the moment he received the Select Committee subpoena in September 2021, has pursued a bad faith strategy of defiance and contempt. A jury found Bannon guilty in July on 2 misdemeanor counts of contempt of Congress for refusing to testify and provide documents to the Select Committee. Bannon is due to be sentenced by the U.S. District Court Judge Carl Nichols on Friday. The panel had demanded testimony from Bannon about his efforts to help Trump subvert the 2020 election and his knowledge of efforts. Bannon was also part of a team of Trump allies who gathered at the Willard Hotel on January 6 and helped direct Trump's last-ditch strategy to disrupt the transfer of power. They say all of that as if it's a statement of fact. Statement of fact. It's all political posturing. It's all pandering, and it's all one big October surprise. Here's what I think. A video was released of Nancy Pelosi saying, "This is the moment I've been waiting for trespassing on the Capitol grounds," and then threatening Trump. They thought that would help them? Maybe the reason why polls are shifting is because of things like this. You want me to believe that January 6th was an affront to this country, that we were caught off guard and Trump tried to stage a coup. But there's video of Nancy Pelosi saying she was waiting for this moment? Are you serious? Why didn't she do anything about it? Why didn't she have the National Guard ready? What do you mean she was waiting for it? That implies she wanted it to happen. This is the moment I've been waiting for. I think that backfires on them. And that was her daughter who filmed it. Steve Bannon getting 6 months in jail for contempt of Congress? Are they dropping this because they want the narrative to be that Trump's inner circle is going to prison, going to jail for a long time? That may work on the leftist weirdos and the liberal diehards, but regular people are going to be like, for what? This is crazy. Nobody even cares about this. It's weaponization, man. Serious weaponization. Biden is hammering your 401k. This is what it really comes down to. Soaring inflation has wiped out $2.1 trillion, an average of 25% of American workers' retirement savings. And there it is. I noticed it. I don't have a very big stock portfolio or anything like that. I got some stocks. Mostly bought a bunch of Rumble, to be honest, recently. But in the past 2 years, I have seen my stock portfolio drop by like 30 some odd percent. Again, not a lot, not nearly as much as most people probably, but I lost more than the average. I don't know. I don't know. I've invested in things that I think are interesting, and they did bad. The one that I had that did really well, surprisingly, is the graphene company. No, for real. I invested in a company that produces graphene. It's doing well. I'm like up $50. I'm like, oh, hey, look at that. Everything else is down. Maybe Ian is onto something. If you guys don't watch Timcast IRL, you should. Co-host Ian is always talking about graphene. I do think it's funny when people are like, your show's the best, but man, Luke and Ian, they love him or hate him. And I'm like, that's what makes the show eclectic, I guess. I'm not interested in doing a show that's just me. Like, I've got a show. I'll tell everybody this on IRL. Hey, if you don't like the show, just listen to me ramble for an hour and a half over at Tim Pool Daily Show on iTunes and Spotify. But graphene's doing well. Back to the point at hand. Look, if you're a regular person, you're in your 30s and you're finally starting to save, you're probably pissed off. A few years ago, we saw data showing that 30-year-olds finally had a net positive net worth of like $100. Oof. Millennials were entering the market with a negative net worth. And by the time they were 30, they finally had some money to their name. Isn't that amazing? Because of debt. Now, you're in your mid-30s. I'm 36. You're finally starting to save as the average American, and Biden is wiping out what little you had. Boy, they really want you to own nothing. And they expect you to be happy. Well, you know what? People aren't happy. And they're voting against it. There's a better way. There's absolutely a better way. And it's not with the Democrats. Joe Biden's hurting his own party, and we can all see it. Take a look at this. Biden hit by shock new poll. Just 33% of voters would re-elect him if the 2024 election was today. Most Americans say they're worse off than in 2020, with the midterms less than a month away. And that is, my friends, The hard kick in the balls for Democrats. I remember in 2018, I was like, I think Republicans are going to do really well. Democrats swept in. You know what? I was wrong. Boy, was I naive for a variety of reasons. But one, Trump supporters didn't show up. Trump supporters did not come out in the numbers needed to help Trump win, and they should have, but they didn't. They didn't want to vote for the establishment. They voted for Trump, but Trump needed them. And when the Democrats got in, impeachment, impeachment, impeachment. Historically, the rival political party to the president wins in the first term midterms. And that's what we're seeing right now. It's likely that all of this negative attention on Biden is going to reflect on a low enthusiasm for Democrats. So what does that mean? Trump's not running. They're trying to make it seem like he is, but even Trump campaigning didn't work. Trump campaign saying you got to vote Republicans, otherwise they'll impeach me. It didn't work. So when they come out and they say, MAGA Republicans are here, no Trump, no vote. Without Trump, people aren't going to come out. Not to mention, many of them will come out because their 401ks got hit, because their savings are being decimated, because inflation is through the roof and they can't afford gas. So I take a look at these polls and what do I see? Well, historically, it favors the rival political party, so that should happen. But be warned, my friends. Democrats can pull it out. In 2018, we had a lot of signs that Republicans are going to do really, really well, and they didn't. And it was like, what was it, like 31 moderate districts, like a bunch of Trump districts swung for the Democrats. Let's see how it plays out, because all of this good news could be lulling you into a false sense of security. So coming out and saying Republicans got it and a red wave is guaranteed is wrong. The polls are really good right now. Fetterman's looking bad, and he's in the tilt Democrat state. It could actually end up going Republican. Surprise, surprise, Dr. Oz could actually win this one. That's surprising to me. They had a chance for Kathy Barnett, but hey, maybe Fetterman's health will play a role in this. The polls tend to skew about 7 points in favor of Democrats, and if that's the case, we are looking at an apocalyptically bad midterm for the Democrats. It's going to be interesting, my friends. We'll see how it plays out. Next segment's coming up at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimcastIRL. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.